And the clock is about to strike zero. What's up, everybody? It's Kevin from coreMEDIA, and I'm back for round two of the day. We just wrapped up another live Q&A before this with Jim Yakubuski, who was front of house for Gwen Stefani, Matchbox 20. Literally so many mind-blowing, amazing bands. If you missed that one, go check it up. And then now I'm going to wrap with Logan Beaver, who is front of house for Lil Uzi Vert. He worked with Beartooth, Since His Fail, Dillinger Escape Plan, and he's working with Motionless in White right now. So, Logan, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and switch back here to the cam, and then we'll get into the business of talking about mixing. There he is. What up,
What's
man?
up? How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Working from home, quarantined, I assume?
Yes, absolutely. You
Just
got
going
it.
nuts?
Yep.
Well, cool, man. Well, look, thank you so much for doing this. I know when Chris Miller, our mutual friend, was like, hey, man, I got a guy who's perfect. And, like I said, I've known Chris for a while. And anyone who Chris thinks is cool is immediately cool in my book. So I was immediately like, yep, let's do it. Let's
Yep.
just do
Love
it.
that dude.
Like, I trust you.
Great.
So,
Great.
but yeah, man, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and I know that there's a lot of people. We're just trying to generate as much content as we can for people that are not on the road right now. So shout out to all the live sound engineers out there watching this, musicians out there watching this. We'll all be back on the road before you know it. I guarantee it. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, well, I guess Logan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your musical background, how you became a sound engineer, like what steps kind of led you up to now?
Um, Probably not all too uncommon for the most part. I mean, I play guitar since I was like in the sixth grade, so that's kind of where I fell into that. But the actual story of getting into like touring was pretty unconventional for me, actually. I graduated high school at 17, and I had some scholarships for graphic design, and so I thought that was what I was going to do. And I went
Nice.
to college for one day and was like, yeah, nope, I'm good on this. And so I went back the next day and withdrew, and I took like some of the money that I had for books and whatever, and graduation and whatever, and I bought a bunch of studio gear. Um, I bought, it was pretty budget at the time, and I started a lease on a studio space in my hometown. We'll turn it into a studio space, and I started recording local bands, and I did that for a whole year, just doing that exclusively, and then I kind of met a bunch of people through doing that, and one of them happened to be my friend Zach Gibson, who was in a band called Sworn In, and this was back in 2014, and he was like, hey, my band's doing this tour, like I know you do like home recording, like have you ever done front of house? And I was like, yeah. And I definitely hadn't.
Right.
uh, and so I just went out and went out with them, and it ended up working out, man. I learned a lot, and at the beginning it wasn't so hot, but by the end, they were like, yeah, we're going to keep bringing you back out, and yeah, they started with them and then just went from there.
Nice. I know, I had a studio for a while back in Alabama with some buddies. And one was Josh Gilbert from As I Lay Dying. And then the other one was Joseph McQueen, who's an incredible mix engineer. And he's working with all these kind of people in LA now. But I remember he used to come to the club I used to mix at and be like, why is your compressor only hitting like, only like 3 dB? I'm like, I'm just knocking off the peaks. He's like, you need to slam that thing. I was like, dude, if I did that in live sound, it would just erupt.
Yeah.
So we used to go back and forth on that and just pick at each other. So if you're a studio guy, how did that help you shape what you want to see or functionality as far as live gear choices?
Well, I for most of the stuff that I use, and when I consider like the live gear, like I include like what the band uses in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, as far as that goes, I don't have too much of a say in it usually. So whatever gear in the beginning, whatever gear I got was just what I used. I was doing, just house consoles for the first 2 or 3 years, and just really getting familiar with everything, which was invaluable. You know what I mean? I'm glad I didn't just rent one console from the start, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But um, it's like the first thing that I would look at whenever I'm trying to find a piece of gear to use is can the artist afford now anyways is can the artist afford this? Does it fit in the budget? And if so, then I go from there. So that's like really the first thing, unfortunately. But then, I also tour manage the band that I work for now, so audio can't be 100% of my day anymore. Um,
And that's becoming more and more common too, man.
yeah,
Like
man.
when, back in the day, it just kind of started where front of house became TM because they interfaced with the venue so much as far as like, advancing the show and everything for tech. And it just
Yeah,
kind of transitioned into, hey, we also need you to TM. Oh, and we also need you to settle merch. Oh, hey,
right,
can you drive the
right.
bandwagon or the bus? It was just like it has been evolving as talent has been decreasing. So it's tough, man. I feel for you. Like that's a lot. That's a lot to do when you've got 40 or 50 dates.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
and it's just there's so much more to think about. I could never do it. There's no way I could TM and do front of house. Like that's just so. Hats
Yeah.
off to you.
It's a lot. It's a lot, but I try to find the balance with it, and still, mixing is still the best part of my day. I would say I'm a front of house guy first
Oh yeah.
before a tour manager, but yeah, like I mean, when it comes to gear and what I use, I really just kind of have taken piece by piece from other engineers that I've known, and toured with or whatever. Maybe this guy uses this mic on his snare, but this on his toms, and just
Mhm.
piece by piece, kind of found things that I liked in other people's mixes and started to adapt it into my own. And uh, yeah, and just when you can actually hear that piece of gear working in person and be able to understand what it's doing for them, that's where all my decisions really come from. But I'm not really too picky either. You know what I mean? Like the last tour, I took out 8 channels of Universal Audio Apollo and was just running like all the SSL stuff on it and the Unison pre's, and that was really cool. But I wasn't exactly like completely sold on it because I haven't really dived in to all the different options of outboard gear. So now I kind of just like if I show up to a venue and they have like 2 Avalons or something, I'm like, let's throw them in. I'll just throw
Right. Yeah.
whatever in and try it out. And yeah, so for like outboard gear like that, I kind of am just diving into that. But when it comes to microphones and stuff like that, it's always been the same pretty one size fits all mics. But uh, recently I got really into the Telefunken stuff, and what's nice about them, and I guess with any company that I try to use now, is can I talk to like someone in person about this gear that works
Mm-hmm.
there? Like if I have a question or something and I get an automated response, like it's over for me. Like I'm just like, okay, never mind. But
Yeah, that can
like
be a
with
bummer.
Telefunken, they're like, my rep there, Connor Rowan, great dude. He comes out to shows. We hang out, we get dinner. Like that's great, and like you can't replace that with just any other company really. But so that's a big thing too. If people bring me stuff out to try and I like it, and then that's really where my gear choices come from, is just trying stuff out, and what works. And like I said, not too picky. I'll take what I can get. Sometimes
Yeah.
I won't bring my mic package out on a tour, and if they just have a hodgepodge of stuff, cool with me. I'll make it work.
Yeah, but I mean, what you said about relationships is a big deal with manufacturers. I feel that same way because I represent a lot of brands, um, and there's some manufacturers out there that don't operate on Saturday or Sunday. That's
Yeah.
we don't operate on Saturday or Sunday either, as far as like the sales and transacting part of it. But like there's shows going on Saturday and Sunday, and if something goes wrong, someone's got to be able to pick up the phone. I know there's a
Exactly.
there's a huge manufacturer that like if you call them on Saturday and their console goes down, it's just like please leave a message. We'll return your call on Monday. It's like I got a
Yeah.
problem now.
Right.
So
Right.
having those relationships you can reach out to is a I I think very highly of that. I try to be that person. Like I don't know you, but you got my number now. Feel free to call
Right.
me anytime you want. But like I mean, I can't tell you how many times Chris Miller or Jake has called me at 11 p.m. They're like, I can't get this file to save, or I can't get this microphone to sync, or they text me a picture of a PSM 1000 body pack sitting in a solo cup full of rice, and they're like, it got real wet. What do I do? You know what I mean? Like something that
Yeah,
they can't wait to the next day. So, um, cheers to that, man. Because I mean,
yeah,
that's
man.
that's a great way to look at what you bring out. Um,
Invaluable, man. I couldn't. I remember there was one time where I was using auto tune when I was doing a show for Uzi, and I had used the trial license at first because it was a very expensive plugin, and I had been,
mm-hmm.
off tour for some time, so I was kind of like, man, I don't know if I can just drop $400 or $500 on this auto tune right now. So I had the trial, and I realized Friday night before I had a fest on Saturday that my trial was expired.
Oh yeah,
And this was like, and we were going there at 2 a.m. to do the programming and get my show file all set up and whatever to the fest the night before. And I hit up Antares, my rep from Antares, at like 11 p.m. and he was like, we really shouldn't give you another trial license, but we're gonna do it. And like, I hope hope your show goes well. But and like
yeah.
that was awesome and
It's the right
nice
thing
to
to
get
do,
my
man.
show.
Rule number one: just be cool. I say it all the time.
Yeah,
Like, there's one main rule: just be cool. Just be a good human,
yeah,
and a lot of everything works itself out. Um, so as regarding the gear, I guess right now you're currently mixing on a dLive. Is that correct?
yeah. I started with I wasn't really sure when I first made the leap. I wasn't really sure about it, so I started with the 1500 because it was budget friendly and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, now I moved up to the S5000, and it would take a lot to change my mind about these consoles now. Uh, I was I was a profile guy till I die, and then once I got that Allen and Heath out, I was like, yep, never mind. This is so easy. And I remember one of my biggest concerns with moving to that console at first was that there was only 12 faders, and I asked Chris Pollock, who mixes August Burns Red and uses that console. I was like, I don't know, man. I just don't think I could mix the band with only that many faders. And he was just like, "Yep, bet you could." And that stuck with me for some reason. And I tried it out, and sure enough, yeah, you can get it done, but definitely prefer the larger format now. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
if I
that
had to
way.
go
I like
back,
I like to have a whole lot of faders. For quick fly dates and stuff. It's great. For me anyway, like my workflow, like I can get done with 12 faders, DCAs or whatever. But I love having a lot of faders where I can jump to things real quick. But Alan, he said 12 faders on the C1500. Did I say 15 faders? 12 faders. There's 12 faders. There's 6 layers. You can get to a whole bunch of channels. Um, but no, it's great. And then there's some huge acts out there that were using the 1500, and it started turning heads, and people love it because now if you can make your rig modular enough, like Chris did with the Champs rig,
yeah,
that all lives in a road case, and if they need to fly with it, it can all just take it out in the racks, put it in Pelicans, put it on a plane, their entire rig and everything is there. And if he wants to rent a bigger surface overseas or wherever he is, he can just rent an S5000 surface.
yeah. And I mean that
So,
right there is priceless on its own. And in a world where 4 tours of leasing a console would pay for it now, it's kind of the point where you're better off probably just owning whatever your console is, and Alan Heath makes that affordable for sure. And
hmm
you know
it's
so
it's
yeah, that was
definitely
a
getting
big
there.
part of it.
Did you see the new titanium
I
1500?
did. I did.
Dude, yeah. That's like the
I did.
that's like the fly rig's dream right there. When I first saw it, when they unveiled the little curtain at NAMM in our meeting, I went to go pick it up, and it was almost like one of those things, like when you go to pick up a jug of milk that you think is full, and you just you rip it out of the fridge door or whatever. It was
Right.
like that. Like I went to go pick up the console, and I just kind of boom. I mean, it weighs nothing, nothing. It
Yeah,
is
that's awesome.
it is Warcraft and wizardry. I can't wait for everybody to check it out, and it looks cool too. It's got some
Yeah.
laser etching on the side. Well, cool. Great gear choices. My air conditioning just kicked on. I hope it's not too loud. It's
I can't
freezing
even
here.
hear
In
it. I
All
think
right,
you're all
good.
good.
Good. All right, pretend I never said anything. So you mentioned UA and bringing out
Right.
some stuff, and for those of you who are not are watching that don't know, dLive has a lot of really good plugins that are native on the desk. So
Yeah.
what are some like your go-to plugins, favorite tips and tricks, stuff you couldn't live without now that you've used it so much? I'll just let you
Well,
go ahead.
I keep it pretty simple with the onboard effects. I find that I end up using a lot of the same stuff. The 16T or the 16T, the DBX sim that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I put that thing on every single show. I was just like, yep, that's immediately the sound I'm looking for, like right away, no question, cool. Next input, try the 160. Yep, cool. And so I use that for most of my instruments. Uh, just love how it's very simplistic and just gets the job done for what I need. And then like things like vocals and tracks and whatever, the LA2A sim that's on it.
Yeah, sounds great.
Can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. I think it's like the
Optotronic,
Optotronic. Yes,
Optronic.
that's right. Yep, that one's great. And I also love the Dyne 8, the dynamic EQ that's on there. That thing's that thing is just crazy.
Yeah,
I love it.
that's the secret polish right there,
For real.
on a lot of stuff.
The
That's like
one
a
thing I wish I could do, and Alan and Heath, I know you're listening. I wish I could just insert as an effect, same place as you could insert, any effect, just a parametric EQ, so I can have like a like a post EQ after all my dynamics are done. Because I like to EQ it going into the comp, because you can do it with the Dyne 8, but
right.
I don't necessarily need all that. Sometimes I just want to do one little boost or something, or one little cut. That would be
Yeah,
great to have. But
that's
that's what
good.
the UA came in handy big time, is being able to insert EQs after stuff like that and just really shape stuff out more.
Nice. Yeah, I know Jeff's in here. He'll definitely make a note of that, and I'm sure he'll probably furiously just be like typing in the background to be like, "Can we do this already?" And then I'm sure Bangs will be like, "Yeah, actually," because Bangs will pretzel twist that console. Like, someone will be like, "Well, does it have snapshots like Digico?" Bangs will be like, "Nope, officially nope, but here's how you do it." It's like you can do this, 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 and you can create snapshots.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. So my next question was going as far as like how do you approach mixing? Like when you start working with a new band, how do you say in your brain like, okay, I know what I want to do. Do I just want to like how do you start a mix? Like what's your architecture? And then I have a follow-up question to this because it's really strange. But go ahead, like how do you initiate your mix architecture?
so. I mean, I pretty much do, since I've mixed, a lot of the same style of bands. They're all A lot of them have been, a lot of rock and metal. Uh, if it's a new band, the one thing off the bat is you don't really have that liberty to say like, "Hey, your tone sucks," or "Can you turn that down a little bit,"
Or
or
hit
whatever.
harder, wimp.
Right, right, or hit hard, exactly, or hit. Actually, I've never had to say that. Thankfully, I've been very lucky to mix some incredible drummers. Uh,
Yeah,
but
good.
I mean, yeah. What first thing I would do is just get everything sounding good in its own, because you haven't heard them play yet. You're doing your first sound check. Just get everything sounding as good as you can on its own, and I mean, sure, when it kicks in, there might be some things that are weird, but it's just the best. To me, it's the best way to start, is just everything individually first and then put it together as a whole. And yeah, and then VCAs are king for me. I just throw everything on VCAs. And one big thing that I've gotten in trouble with before is like I'll do a new band and like the singer's not even there for rehearsals, and so I haven't even heard them, you know what I mean? And so I always make sure that I have all my instruments on one VCA, and the singer on his own VCA. So in crunch time when the show starts, if I can't hear him, I can just bring down all the band or just turn him up a bit until I can get some other things figured out. So I think when it's a new band, you just need to really be prepared for the variables that you don't know about yet, because there's so much of that,
Oh yeah.
and just having like a backup plan to fix whatever problem you're having, and being able to do it instantly, so you're not getting the people that are looking back over their shoulder at you and all that. But yeah, yeah, definitely VCAs are king. I don't use a ton of groups. I'll throw my vocals in a group, uh, so I can have that graph EQ,
Hmm.
and maybe my drum shells in a group. But for the most part, I don't really need to do too much grouping on the Allen and Heath stuff because every plugin has that wet and dry mix on it. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
you can parallel compress right off the channel. So that really takes a lot of the bussing that I would normally have to do on the profile, where I'm sending everything there and squashing it on the parallel comp, and so that really helps out a lot. And but yeah, man, overall, just with a new band, just getting everything good on its own, and trying not to make anything too big, or making sure it's not too small. Just a good one size fits all to start, and then go from there as you figure out the different nuances and all that.
Yeah, I mean I'm kind of with you in that regard. Like, I just kind of get everything in, and then I start arranging it to how it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because every band is slightly different. Even if it's rock and roll, like there's gonna be something that each band does that's different from everybody else, and you really just got to figure out a way to like make it work. When your fingers land on the faders, you know exactly where you are and what to do. So that's good info. But so my follow up question was, going in between Motionless and White, and then Lil Uzi Vert, like, that's like, two complete opposite ends of the spectrum. And like I was saying, when we were chatting before we went live, like most people that are in that like rock, pop rock, like punk scene, kind of like that, like the Warped Tour scene, they kind of stay there. So, how much different is it mixing for Lil Uzi versus mixing for like Motionless, and like how did you kind of bridge that gap and make that transition?
So, well, the first part, it is extremely different. When I'm mixing Motionless, I feel like I'm really mixing. When you're doing rap, it's kind of, you're just kind of pushing the DJ fader around, and maybe the vocal too, but it doesn't really take as much effort to do shows like that. And honestly, that was probably the easiest gig I've ever had. But I how I got that into that gig was my friend Eric Gerloff, great dude, great mentor. He was very busy at the time, and he was doing, not only was he doing some of the Uzi stuff, but he was doing ASAP Rocky monitors full time. So he was kind of like, yo, I can't do this, and started kicking me gigs. And then they just kept coming as he was busy. And I thankfully, and it's funny enough because he's from this world too, the rock, Warped Tour scene world. So
well, what year was it on Warped when they kind of started having like more rap acts? You remember, like it started kind of like toward the end of Warped, it started kind of like having more and more and more. Oop, I lost your audio. Uh-oh. Can you hear me? I lost your audio. Doom. It's live. It is live. Hey, hey, 1, 1, 2. Check if you have an audio interface. Let's see. So anyway, I hope everyone's having a good day so far. Sometimes there you are, back.
Cool. I'll just use the webcam mic. I think my headset died. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, no, you sound fine. Yeah, I was doing something the other day with an interview, and like sometimes I know Zoom isn't the best thing for an interview, but it's kind of what we got to work with. So but sometimes like it'll try to just take control of your interface, and it will literally just like, if I'm not watching it, it'll just turn the volume up on my RME interface all the way. Like it'll turn the preamp to like 86. And everyone's like, Kevin, I can hear a rat, taking a leak on a cotton ball in the corner of your room. And I'm just like, what? And then I forget about it. But anyway, all right. So we're back. I'm trying to think of the last thing we heard you say, because I can't rewind it. But it was talking about, we were talking about Warped Tour and like the crossover between when the rap started kind of taking over toward the end.
Yeah, and I remember Waka Flocka being on the tour in 2017. So that was my first memory of like a actual rapper doing it. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, I think at some point when you do enough bands in this scene, you're just kind of like, I gotta do something different because you don't know what it's like. You know what I mean? You have no clue, and it definitely is one of those grass is greener things because it doesn't necessarily mean the gig is better. I mean, pop and rap obviously pays a little bit more than the Warped Tour scene, which is a plus. But you don't get to mix a drum kit, and you have to fly to every show, and you're in the plane by yourself, and you don't know anyone, and so it's a much more solo experience, at least in the shows that I've done. You're pretty much more on your own. Me and Kyle, his name's Kyle Glasser, a great lighting designer. We did a lot of those shows together, and it was pretty much just me and him kicking it and just waiting and hoping the artist shows up to do his show.
Yeah, hoping he shows up, man.
Yeah.
There were so many times where like these big fraternities would book like like Cisco or something, like like 2008, 2009, something like that, and they would have a ton of people there, and he would just never show up. Like it was like a thing in that world for a while. I don't know why it was a thing, but they were just like, yeah, man, I'm not showing up. But I'm glad they don't do that anymore. Thanks for showing up, everybody. We need you to show up. It makes the show way more fun.
But yeah,
so,
it's very different.
Go ahead, sorry.
It's very different. Like with Motionless and White, I have I think 32 inputs at front of house, and with Lil Uzi it was 4 inputs. It was DJ left, DJ right, Uzi vocal, and DJ vocal. And the hardest part about that job, I mean, you tune the PA a little bit, but usually you're playing a big festival, and the guys have already tuned it out, and you're working with great companies like Brown Note Sound or whoever, Eighth Day, so whatever, and those guys, the systems techs are great, all super pro dudes. So there's not much to do, you know what I mean? I kind of turn the music on, turn the DJ on, and I'm running snapshots for auto tune presets and just kind of hanging out. Really, it was a pretty simple gig. I definitely missed mixing the drum kit on like day 4, but
oh yeah.
But then like I was doing Vic Mensa, and Vic had his was way more fun to mix because he split all of his tracks out. He sent, even though there was like sometimes he would play with a band, but when he wasn't, he would still have all of his tracks out. So I would still have control of like kick percussion, snare percussion, top percussion, and then like vocal tracks and synth tracks. So I had a lot more control over the mix. So that was a little more fun to mix. But yeah, man, it's such a different world, and it's crazy because I feel like in the scene that the guys like me and Chris are in, and not necessarily Chris now that he has I'm sure there's still tons of challenges, but it's like those guys are so surprised about how hard guys from our scene work. And it's crazy,
yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Like I remember one time ringing the microphone out, and I was just like, sure. I was like, yeah, that's 2K. And the DJ was like, how do you know how to do that? I'm like, what do you mean? Have you never like had anyone that did that? And he's like, I don't know, I've never seen it. It's like, whoa.
Dude, yeah, it's nuts. Like I did a thing for Glitch Mob. They're great DJs, and they used to come through the club all the time I worked at, and just simple things like that. Like they would set up a vocal, or he was wearing a headset, and he had all these wedges, and then he took the headset off. He's like, it's not going to work, it's feeding back. I was like, I'll just ring out the wedges. He was like, what? Like there's a science to it, man. Like, yep. And they're just used to going, just hit and play.
Exactly.
And then, but like you said, especially if Vic can at least give you stereo stems, that really gives, I feel like it would give you like more joy to mix than just doing like, oh, there's the stereo thing. Because as well as I do, like if someone gives you a stereo feed and you're in like a room with horrible acoustics, there's some things you just can't fix at that point. Yep. But doing stems, you can probably get it in the ballpark.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing that's crazy is just like, when you're working for like, when you're doing rap, like these guys work, they might do a 10-song album and there might be 10 different producers on that. And you know, and all you have is a left and right. So I guess there is a little more to it. Most of it just done with Wave C6 just for, you know, leveling stuff out. But like every single track is like, just sounds different. You know, like when I'm mixing a band, like I'm controlling how everything sounds. So it sounds pretty consistent. But yeah, when you're doing rap and all you get is that stereo, there's so many inconsistencies between song A and song B and then song B from song C. So yeah, that might be one of the biggest challenges. Actually, the biggest challenge with Uzi is that he loved to throw his mics in the crowd and then would just go grab another one from whoever, and then I'm trying to chase it down, find where it was to move it back to my auto tune track. And that was the hardest part, far and beyond. But
that, or just how many people would just keep the RF mic, right, and just be like, I don't have it.
Right. I remember one we weren't even headlining. Marshmallow, the DJ, was headlining, and he had 2 Shure KSM9s on his rider, and sure enough, Uzi threw both of them.
No.
And yeah, I'll never forget the guy from Brown Note stood up and just went, no, and they made someone from the team come out and give an announcement. I don't know if they got him back, but they made someone come out and do an announcement. And I mean, he did it at every single show. So
wow, I'm sure someone got invoices for a few of those mics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when they're the headliners, and then Marshmallow had to play with some 58s. I'm sure he wasn't thrilled. Yeah.
Just imagine being in the crowd and being like, man, I'm having a great time. Funk. Just
yeah,
catching a UHFR to the head, or an Accent Digital, or whatever they're using now.
The best part about it was he'd come out and like in a couple songs play his biggest song, whatever, and then he would end with that. But as soon as it would start playing, you just go, all right, you guys sing it, and then leave. Like just gone. It was very interesting.
Yeah, Bang says you should automate all scenarios on soft keys to make an oh crap scenario for every microphone on stage.
True. That's true. That's true. But you know what? I was on the profile, so it was kind of like, you know, working with what 2008 gave me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like wearing someone else's underwear when you have to like use an old console like that. I'm sure I'm going to get a witty comment from Jeff talking about wearing someone else's underwear. But yeah, Bang says Cedric from at the drive-in did that crap to me all the time. We had 4 spares. That's I mean, I think it's great for the audience is loving that stuff, but at the same time, like us, we're just like, stop throwing everything, man.
Yeah. And then sometimes he would grab another mic and would start talking to it, and as I would get it, like he would be like, oh, this one isn't working, and literally I get it working half a second later and it would already be in the air. I'm like, well, let's do it again. Let's find another one, you know. I'm very jealous that Bang's got to mix Cedric, because Mars Volta is one of my all-time favorites. That's very cool.
That's awesome. So we talked a little bit about room tuning. How do you approach it for the rock side, and how do you approach it for the rap side?
So most of the rap stuff, now some of the rap stuff I was doing would just be a club show where the PA was just kind of like a 360 system.
Right.
And if I did one of those, I would just be on my laptop, just running them through like a Focusrite Scarlett and just paging through auto-tune presets. You know, there's not much you can really do to mix in a scenario like that. But the other times, if you're an open air show, like I said, those guys have that stuff dialed. And you know, I also don't really get a chance to do any tuning because I do the programming for like those big fests, the big rap fests. Me and the lighting designer will go there at like 2 a.m. like after they're shut down, and he'll program like video and lighting, and I'll make sure they actually installed auto tune on the profile. But like you're not allowed to turn the PA on that late. So and then you know, he'll play at 8:30 p.m. the next day, you know, with a 15-minute changeover, and being the only audio guy, having to be on the stage at the start of that, it's kind of like there's not much you could do. So you kind of just got to trust your systems tech in those situations. But when it comes to rock, like I don't go too crazy. I'd say when it comes to tuning the room, first thing I do is just look at whatever PA we have, and I'm not too picky with that either. But it's mostly just like a yes or no for me. I look at the PA and be like, dang, or like, cool, it's Vertec,
Mhm.
it's K2, K1, whatever. Yeah. And then go from there. So I kind of have a pretty good idea about how everything responds, but I pretty much just play the same. I just play an MP3 or a song off Spotify through it. And actually right now I use a song called Gloria by a band called The Midnight. And I like that because it has like the vocals really loud on that song, and it's pretty harsh. And I can just immediately hear where my vocal's gonna, reflect too strongly or whatever in the room. And I start there because I mean, your vocals, everything, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I start there and just really find what's going to sound bad vocally and cut that out. And then, and then when it comes to other areas, maybe for subs, I use a different song to hear what I need to hear in sub bass. But yeah, just play a couple songs and just, get it sounding how I want. And then I'll do more once the band starts sound checking. And yeah.
Yeah. Because I know, who was I talking to? Someone here in Nashville was talking about, they'll go tune the PA to the same, like, reference track every time or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, all right, cool. I know exactly what the band's going to sound like because I've known the song for so long. And then the band comes out, and if it's like the third night on the road, they might be like more tired than before. And it's like their energy and adrenaline is just not there. And he's like, well, now I got to retune the PA because no one's hitting as hard or no one's doing everything. So it's like, so many people would just go and tune a room and then just kind of set it and forget it. But it's like you said, you really have to tune it to what you know, and then you have to tune it again when the band comes out and then tailor it for them. But having a good system tech is like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because like
Absolutely.
that lets you focus on mixing. You don't have to sit there and worry about, how much, if I got smart the rig and, pull this out and, push this in and, is it in phase? Are the subs in cardioid? Is everything, delayed properly?
Yep.
So doing
And then
that to get your mind off of it.
you also got to watch out because I mean it's one of the biggest audio guy faux pas things to say, but when people come in the room, it's so much different. I've had sound checks where I've walked away after sound check and been like, tonight's gonna be sick, and then the band starts and I'm like, whoa, what? This sounded so good 6 hours ago. What is happening? And yeah, so I really just try not to go too crazy with it. If I'm making notches, I know that in the morning that's what sounded weird, so I'll be more inclined to just stick with what I was doing earlier. But the more I do and the more I get into it, I find you're just kind of, unless there's a bunch of people in the room when you're tuning the room for some reason, you're kind of working against yourself. So yeah, definitely don't do too much. Just get rid of things that are building up in the room and keep it simple. And I like to use a graph and a parametric on it. I always was a graph guy, and I remember this really great engineer named Frank Scambolone, who does Luke Bryan right now. He was filling in on a tour I was on and was like, can I tell you something? Just don't use your graph anymore. Just use a parametric. And I was like, really? He's like, just try it out. And now I use a little bit of both, but yeah, just make the song that I'm playing each morning sound pleasing to my ear, and I usually find that will translate pretty well every time.
Yeah, true. Well, that's cool. Let me check the chat for any questions. No, it's just Bangs and Drew and Alan Heath going back and forth. Hey, Drew. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey.
Drew has an awesome set of videos. I'll make sure to drop the link in the thing below. Drew does front of house for Billie Eilish. And she's on fire right now. And Drew's doing while he's quarantined, doing some tips and tricks videos. I think you can actually get them all on that same website where this was posted, the allen-heath.com/sessions. If that's not right, Jeff, feel free to post the link in the chat. So let's get back to these then. How long have you been with Motionless and White? I know that when we were texting back and forth, you were like, well, actually, we all kind of like live together.
Yeah.
So how did, I guess you've been with them for a long time. Elaborate on that. And then like, what are y'all working on now? And then like, what are y'all planning to work on in the future?
So a weird thing about that was me and their drummer now were like, best friends growing up. We went to the same high school, very far, not very far, about 2 hours away from where those guys are based. And a couple of guys in Motionless were living with some guys that me and Vinny, their drummer now, they were living together as roommates, and we were going to their house to record our music. And they ended up picking Vinny up to be their drummer after their drummer left or whatever. And then I kind of went and started doing my own touring stuff. But then in like 2015, Motionless was touring with Slipknot and Lamb of God, and they needed another guitar tech. Like, there's just too much, stage is too big. One guy can't just be running back and forth.
Yeah, that had to have been a massive tour with Slipknot and Lamb of God.
It was nuts, man. It was nuts.
Was that an arena tour or?
It was all sheds and arenas. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably played like Sloss Furnace in Birmingham. That was a good shed tour.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of cool. We got to play I can't remember the name of the arena, but where the Vancouver Canucks play, that was awesome. And
oh yeah, gnarly.
Yeah, some stuff like that. But I was just guitar teching at the time, and didn't really have a lot of experience with that since I was a front of house. And I went from that, and then I even did a tour, miserably drum teching for them, and then was doing some other stuff in between while they were off. I went and mixed Let Live for a little bit, and was just, and in that time I did Dillinger for a month or so, or maybe it was a little less, right during their final year. And just kind of was working basically to try and put myself in a position to move up within the Motionless camp. And then I became the only guitar tech, and then I finally moved to front of house. And then just at the beginning of last year, did the whole thing, front of house, tour manager, production manager for them now. So now my roommate is one of the guitar players, and next door is our monitor engineer and the drummer.
That's so cool.
And we're all just great friends, man. And it's like a family. It definitely is a family thing. And I think if you can find a camp like that in this world, and find people who are down to take care of you and down to work with you, and it's really, you can't replace that. And even like just beyond the friendship, like if I don't like a tone, I can just be like, yo, can we like change that?
Yeah, hey man, your tone sucks.
Yeah, we can do that, instead of just being,
Yeah.
So you get a lot more freedom to kind of ask questions and suggest things that'll make your own life easier without feeling like, well, I just work here kind of thing. You can get a little more involved in everyone's creative process, and yeah, that's great. It's great that way.
Yeah, that's what Chris Miller and I were talking about. Like, you don't necessarily have to be the best front of house person or the best monitor engineer. You just got to be like a cool dude. Rule number one: be cool, be a good human, get along with your camp, because you are a family.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, make it work, and just be cool, just be fun to hang around.
Yeah, and just try your best too, because I mean, people see that.
Yep.
Like, even if you're not exactly crushing it, and things haven't been working out, you had a couple bad shows, but if the people around you genuinely believe that you are trying your hardest, and I mean, I think you owe it to yourself anyways to really, if you're in this industry, you always are trying, for perfection. That's the elusive thing about this. But it helps a lot.
Even the guys that I think are perfect, some of the biggest mix engineers, and you talk to them, and I'm like, hey man, I caught your mix, the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans. It sounded great, and they're just like, yeah, that was a bad night. Like, even they're always like, no, that was a bad night. I was struggling with this, and I couldn't really get this to work. It's just like, they're like, we'll never ever be happy.
Yeah,
ever.
Dude, I remember the first, we were out with Alice Cooper last summer, doing all shed. Alice Cooper and Hailstorm, doing all sheds, and I remember there was one. It's in New England somewhere. I want to say Connecticut maybe, but they monitored dB levels in the neighborhoods, not within the arena, but within the neighborhoods around, and it was very strict. And that was the first time me and my Telefunken rep, who I was trying to win over, that's the first time he came out, and I remember just like having my head in my hands on the console, just like, this is so quiet, so quiet. and then Hailstorm and Alice Cooper come on and just rip through those dB limits, and the guy who was enforcing the sound is just there doing this, and I was like, man, I just put myself through that for nothing. So you're still
Yeah.
always going to have a bad show, here and there, and it just is what it is. But yeah, you're only as good as your last show.
Yeah, there you go. Boom, get that tattooed.
Yeah.
So let's see. What else I want to ask you? Oh, so we always get this question all the time. Core rhythm section, drum and bass sounds.
Right.
Like what is your approach to get the kick and snare to cut in the mix and have a good relationship with the bass guitar? Because I'm sure in Motionless, when I listen to stuff, you probably have like a clean bass and like a dirty bass, right?
Kind of.
Or yeah. So talk about that.
So so starting with drum sounds, the thing about Motionless and White is they might do a song that's 110 BPM, just 4 on the floor, kick, snare, hat the whole time. And then the next song might be 200 BPM with blast beats the whole time.
Right.
And so like I have to use a kick trigger with them. I'm sure I don't have to, but it just sounds the best and with them in their scenario. And that's the only band I've ever used it for. But like, yeah, it's just so many different types of songs, and they like to rotate the set list every night. Like we could go 6-week tour and never play the exact same set list one night. So that adds a whole level of challenge to it. And yeah, just using a trigger makes it easy because it's just consistent across the board. And so I'd start there, and then of course the relationship between your kick drum and your bass is important. And everyone's on Kemper with Motionless and White. I got them all on those new Kemper floor profilers, so I don't even have to have them in the rack anymore.
Oh yeah.
Right there at the front of the stage. They're amazing. Love them. And we run the bass through that. So he can control his tones from right there, so and like I said, when you're with an artist for so long, I can kind of come up and be like, yo, the tone for that sucks. Let's change that. And you just work back and forth until you get something that works. But with them, actually, I only use one line for bass with them, but just because of how much is going on in the Kemper, it works out. And I've done that in the past. When I was mixing Beartooth, Ashi, their bass player, used to split his tone through 2 of the dark glass pedals, and then that was awesome. One was for lower and one was for higher, and I loved that. So like I said, I'm not terribly picky, and if I can get a good sound out of it and it's cool with them, it's cool with me. But yeah, and then more back into drums. I really heavily process my drums. Like if you go listen to a Motionless and White record, like those drums are like super processed, super verb, super huge sounding, and yeah, I try to make it sound exactly like that. So I mean, I'm tons of EQ, and then I hit it with compression, and then I'm using like 3 and 4 reverbs on my shells at any given time. You know what I mean? And that's the big one for me. I just couldn't live without at least 2 different verbs on my snare, and then maybe a third just to make for some super dramatic reverb hits and whatever, and bigger parts and stuff like that. But just making sure that your drums are always filling out that space, and parallel compression. I can't say enough good things about that. That was like, I remember when I first went from not parallel compressing to doing it, and I couldn't believe that it had taken me as long as it did to do it, because it was instant better drum tones. And yeah, that was a big part of it. And it's so easy now on the dLive with the wet and dry knobs. You don't have to bust stuff out. You can change on the fly how much of each one is hitting, the compressor hard. And yeah.
And it doesn't eat up another channel. Like
Yeah.
when I was doing it, like on an LS9, like, a decade ago, I had to burn a channel. And, I had the 16 channel. Well, I guess it was the 32, but I only had 16 faders. And when you couldn't really cross patch on that thing, so you had to burn a channel. So like we had parallel compression on like the bass. We had it on like 4 vocals. So I mean that's like 10 channels I had to burn just to get parallel comps.
Yeah.
But I know Drew was saying when you were talking about Parallel Path earlier, he said, yes, Parapath, be the king.
Do be the
Because
king.
we freaking, like, you know, when you show people and you're like, oh, by the way, you want to do parallel compression? You just do it right here. And they're like, oh, what channel does it come back on? I'm like, no, it's in the channel.
Yeah.
It's just do it here. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh.
I remember Jared Daly mixes North Lane. I think he does monitors for Bring Me the Horizon right now. He was the first person I ever saw with the C1500 or any of the new dLive stuff. And he was sound checking one day right before they went on, and I watched. He just had his drummer come out because they didn't have a drum tech with them, at least on that festival run they didn't. And his drummer just came out and played like real quick beat around the kit and then walked off. And he immediately just went on his laptop, selected that, ran it back through virtual check, and just mixed his drums right there in like 30 seconds through the PA. And I was like, whoa, like that was so fast, because being a profile guy where you got to do the whole 9 and reload the scene and all that, and then the gains don't line up and whatever. Yeah, that was mind blowing. And then he showed me in that same moment, showed me the wet and dry signal, and I was just like, this is the future. And then, you know, a couple years later, maybe a year and a half later, I saw Chris Miller using that console and got to hear it in person. It was like, cool, I'm in.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, like I've probably demoed the dLive probably around 150 times, you know, all around the Southeast, and we've done countless master classes. And like maybe 4 times we've actually turned it on and like listened to it, because by the time we get through all the features and everything, everyone's like, oh yeah, oh, does it sound good? I'm like, well, of course it sounds good. I mean, I wouldn't be here showing you all this cool stuff, but like literally they just, once they see the feature set and then, you know, they know it's 96K, we rarely pass audio, and if we do, everyone's typically blown away. So thank you for being an avid dLive user.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a recent convert, but I plan. I won't lie about that. It's only been about a year I've been on these, but I don't think I'll go back. And you know, one thing I had a lot of problems with, and I'm not sure how much of it was the preamp or just my session being so old. I used to have so much problems when I was mixing Motionless. One of the most challenging things for mixing them, like when you're trying to get that really loud metal mix and then you're trying to add a vocal on top, I find so many times I'll go and see these dudes mixing and they have this huge instrumental mix, and then when their vocal comes and they're putting it on top, every word that is said is just ripping my face off. And you know, you have to really be able to find that balance. And Chris, who sings for Motionless, he's great dude, great singer, but he's super dynamic with he could go from, you know, a whisper to a sing to a scream in the same 30 seconds. And you know, and he also likes to work the mic a lot when he sings. I mean, a lot of people do that, and that's something that's hard to deal with, you know, when you have to ring out your mic every day anticipating that it could be, you know, a foot and a half away from him at any given moment, and you know, you still got to be able to hear him. So you know, I'll ring my mic out, and with my tech ringing it out, you know, I'll be at Unity and be like, this is so loud, but I still have to make sure I can get up to +10 without anything ripping my face off. So yeah, being able to group stuff out and EQ my vocal 2 different ways, like one way when he's singing nice and loud, and then be able to switch off of that and bring it to another EQ that's when he's being a little bit quieter, where I have to hack a bit more out. Like just features like that I didn't really have before, and it just couldn't do without it now. And then also having the parallel so easy, so if he's starting to get quiet, I can just throw way more of that dry signal in there and get on top. But you know,
yeah, and then not like blast feedback through the PA when you do that. Yeah,
exactly. And the Telefunken, we recently moved from the 58 wireless capsule and went to the M81. I'm still open to experiment with more mics. I love Telefunken stuff, but you know, I would be remiss if I didn't try every one of these options out. For, you know, there's a lot of things, like I'm sure Drew faces a lot of challenges with a quieter singer, and I'm pretty sure he probably will say something. I'm pretty sure they use the SE stuff, and I've heard great stuff about that being.
Yeah, I think they're on the V7.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of stuff about that being good for quieter vocalists, but you know, and the other thing for him is like the aesthetic of how the mic looks. It just looks good. They make it, you know, they make a grill of nickel, plated nickel and stuff like that, and it looks good and it sounds.
The ring
good.
around it is like kind of like jagged edge. It looks
Yeah.
good in the hands. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
He's a big time cupper too, and with the 58 just feels like so good right there in the, you know, the ball of your hand to cup it. But I think with the Telefunken, you kind of are a little more aware of when you're really choking up on it, because there's not that super round ball that, you know, feels best when you're cupping it. So like, just things like that help out so much to get you know, better vocal performance and more volume out of it. And
yeah, I know. Like when we first started working with microphones, like I knew cupping would always make it feedback, but I didn't know the physics of it. But like the way microphones work, like when you cup it, you're cutting off the bottom of it and you're changing the pickup pattern. So if you have a cardioid microphone, when you cup it, it becomes an omnidirectional microphone, which is why it feeds back. But some of the tighter stuff, I know like some of the country people here would cup, like they would get like a hypercardioid, which is like above a supercardioid. And when they cup it, it just becomes a cardioid. But there's some other caps that don't have that problem because of the way that they designed it. I think the V7 is like it you can cup it and it really doesn't affect the tone of it that much, because you know when you cup, like this is an SM7, and when you cup it, it just, you know, it's just horrible. But there's some, because this thing is just a giant open tube, but you change the architecture of it and it'll work good. But then, you know, that goes back to mixing. Like, you know, when they cup it, you got to start carving out the EQ, and you just make it sound like more artificial. So you can start good, you can always end good.
I ring my mic out when I have my stage manager ring it out, because he just does it every day, and I know that if his voice is this loud, I know exactly how loud that's going to mean my singer is. And you know, and it's still tough, because, you know, I'll be mixing and maybe he's not giving me much, or, you know, maybe we're on song 13 and he's, you know, it's not exactly as loud as it was on song 1 and 2. And I'll be, you know, really juicing it, and then he's just like, "How are you guys doing?" And it's just the loudest thing you've ever heard. But yeah, and you know, and that was another thing about what was nice when I first made the switch to Allen and Heath, is I found like if I just gained up his mic on the profile without anything, I'd get feedback. Or like when I was using the Midas Pro series, I felt like I could never get him in the yellow. He was always either way down in the green or buried in the red. And for some reason, once I switched to Allen Heath, it was just like turned him up, and he was just right there. Like it just felt more consistent. And maybe, you know, maybe it's a placebo thing, but that for me was like, I was getting to the point where the vocal was getting so challenging to mix sometimes that I remember I had a file for a Soundcraft VI series that never fed back ever. And I was like looking for those to rent, because I was like, I just know that what I got going on there works, and I can get it. And, you know, and it was starting to make me question things. But then once I moved over to the M81 and switched up consoles, got to a new preamp and a little more features like the built-in dynamic EQ and whatever, it gets a lot more manageable.
Yeah, true. You're not the only one that's told me that too. You know, when they go to dLive, there's a country singer named Craig Morgan who purchased. He loved it so much, he just ended up buying it. He got like an S5000, and he's running his monitors off an SQ6 or 7. I can't remember which one it is, but he was saying he knew he wanted it when, because Craig was very challenging to mix on vocals, when he just turned the preamp up and it sounded like a completely different PA, and they didn't change anything but the console. He was like, "Yep, I think this is what's going to go." And then they heard some drums through it, and they were like, "This is it. Like, this is what we want to do, and we're not going to spend $140,000 on, you know, a pair of mirrored consoles. We're going to get it for a quarter of that price."
Yeah.
So
that was the other big thing, was like the only things I was really looking at that point, you know, because like I said, I had some good and bad experiences on the Midas series. I love the way the drums sound through those pre's, but everything else was just kind of pretty whatever. And then like the other series that was really appealing is the Avid S6 venue stuff, but is very, very highly priced, and
Mm-hmm.
Digico feels too suit and tie to me. There's not a lot of colors, and it's just so serious. And yeah, and Alan Heath felt like the same like friendliness and colorfulness of like something like the X32, which I hope I never have to use really, but something like that, with like where there's a bunch of colors and icons for the inputs and whatever, is like the direct mix between that and something newer like the S6 with how customizable it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but Jeff or Bangs, if you're in the chat, you can correct me. But dLive was like pretty much almost 100% crowdsourced. Like they surveyed
Wow.
several hundred engineers and said, if we would build a console, what do you want on it? So it was just, they took all this input from engineers all over the world and they put it into a console in a factor of a console, and they're still doing that. Like they're still open to suggestion, and that's what I love about working with them is when you're like, you get 3 or 4 engineers and they're like, what I'd love this, and if like 3 or 4 people request it, then they'll put it in a queue and they'll work on it. Like they're not just doing like, we're gonna do what we're gonna do and that's all we're gonna do. Like they're like, we want to build stuff for you. So like there's a new firmware release coming out that's gonna have some new tips and new like bag of tricks, here in a couple months, and it's all stuff that engineers have asked for. So it's really cool, and they'll pick up the phone if you ever have a problem.
Yeah.
Like all the time. And
Yeah,
if you don't know Bangs or anything, I'll make sure to get you his contact info.
Please do. I've heard his name 100 times, but I've never really had anything go wrong with any of the Alan Heath stuff that I've ever needed to reach out and be like, hey, what am I doing wrong? It's just always worked. So I guess I haven't exactly had a need to reach out yet, but I would love to get in touch.
Yeah, it's cool. But yeah. Jeff said audio engineer design, and we really do listen. What did Drew say? The harmonic content of the dLive is next to none. Colors of comps, TubeSat, etc. And then he can't wait for the next firmware.
Yeah, I heard a rumor. I don't know if it's true.
Oh no,
I hope it is. I heard Distressor Sim was coming 2020, but
well, I can tell you this. Alan Heath is always working on new and exciting products.
Okay, got it.
And plugins.
Got it.
And that's all I can say.
Yeah.
So no, Kevin, we're not going to give out Bang's cell phone number on the stream. This will be a private link between Logan and I. And don't you post it either, because I know you will. So let's go back to dLive virtual sound check. You talked about the guy that ripped the drums in, then did them. Do you use virtual sound check with dLive, and if so, how do you use it?
Yeah, I definitely use it. And it really depends. I used to, when I first started with the console, I was using it every single morning because I was just like, this sounds great. I just want to hear it every morning. But with Motionless, they love to sound check because it's something for them to do during the day. So whenever, at the beginning of the tour, they're like, what? We can't sound check today. Like, cool, guess I'll just do nothing until 9:30 or whatever. So they really do enjoy it. And like I said, because we changed the set list so much, there's usually maybe a song they want to brush up on or something. So I don't always do it. If we're in Europe and we hit like a 750 cap and I know they're gonna be checking, I probably will just use the real bands check. But if we're doing like sold out London Forum, yeah, I'll be using it a lot. But and then when you get to the end of the tour in the last 10 days and no one even wants to wake up until 2 p.m., it's like, don't worry about it, or they got press or whatever. It's like, nah, cool, totally cool. I mean, yeah, if they didn't love to check so much, I'd use it every day. And it's great because unlike I used to do it on the profile, at least my gains match up and all that. So it comes in handy. But I feel like if you're virtual sound checking and then right after that your band comes out and plays 5 songs, it's just like, did you really need to do a virtual check at that point? I mean, but yeah, it's super situational. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I like I'm one of the guys that, if I'm going to play a show and it's, if it's a headliner thing, I love sound check because it gives us a chance to like work on some stupid idea we had earlier.
Right.
Like I'll go play private shows at a casino and they give us like 4 hours for sound check and we will absolutely sound check for like an hour and a half and then
Yeah.
go eat food and come back and sound check some more. Just like, mess around with new ideas and stuff like that and try to get our ears all perfect and stuff. But,
And
so,
another
yeah.
thing about virtual check, if you're not playing in a big enough venue that, when the PA is on, that you can hear 0% of the kit from the stage, then
Mm-hmm.
it's almost irrelevant because, there's so many times that you'll be doing your virtual check and you'll have like, yeah, cool, overheads at Unity, and then the drummer starts playing in your room and you're just like, cool, I'll just mute him.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
leave the ride on and the hi-hat, but actually the rest of that can just get
Yeah.
out. I don't need it, And same
Yep.
with like a snare. You might be in a tight club and like, for instance, Billy Reimer with Dillinger had the most insanely loud snare.
Oh yeah, he had like a Keplinger like solid brass snare.
Yeah, and it was just like some days I can't even hear it through the PA because it's just so loud from the stage. So sometimes virtual check is just redundant and may potentially do more harm than just a normal sound check would if you're mixing around how just the basically a wave of it sounds through the speakers versus the actual band on stage with their cabs on and all that. So
Yeah, true. So regarding like some of the stuff you've done with Lil Uzi, Motionless and White, all the bands we've talked about, what are some of the most fun, like unexpected things you had happen on tour? Like just something like off the wall.
Well,
Not sponsored by Vans.
right. Well, with Lil Uzi, I was doing like festivals, and it felt like one weekend would be a festival, and then the next weekend would be a Vegas club show, and it was very strange because I would fly from Pennsylvania at like 5 p.m. and land in Vegas at like 9:30 p.m. We'd sound check at 10, and they'd be like, "Cool, shows at 2 a.m." So I'd come back at 2 a.m. and set up my laptop and interface to run his auto tune, and he would be there from like 2 o'clock till maybe 2:30, and then was out. And then I'd just pack up my stuff, and at 5 a.m. I was flying out of there. So it's like we'll go there. I'm in Vegas for like 12 hours already on my way home. But like I remember the first time like just coming off the escalator, and it's like a car just waiting there for me with the name on the thing, and I was like, this is
You're like, all right, here we go.
This is nuts. I don't know. And yeah, so that was definitely crazy. But there's a lot of things. I remember with Let Live one time we rented a party boat in Lake Shasta on northern California, and rented a jet ski, and it was like right at the end of the tour with the whole tour package, and there was like a water slide off the boat, and that was just one of the best days in general. But a lot of, and with Motionless we do a ton of things. Like I've just been with them so long that now when I'm trying to book off days, I try to spice it up when I can, and we just do a lot of stuff like Top Golf and go-karts and Cheesecake Factory and stuff like that, and camping. That's something that we love to do that is maybe a little different from normal touring groups. We'll just
I've never heard anybody camping.
We'll just take the whole bus to an RV park and rent some go-karts and cook food on the grill, and yeah, we really like doing that, especially down in the South. If any tour managers listening, in Savannah, Georgia, is a place called Creek Fire RV Park. It is awesome. You rent as many golf carts as you want. They have pickleball courts and basketball and pools and hiking and trails and canoes, and it was just tons of fun stuff to do, and it's nice.
I'm gonna have to look that. I don't get to Savannah often, but like we cover that part of Georgia, and I've got 3 or 4 guys that go to Savannah like once a month. I'm gonna get them to look it up.
Yeah,
see if we can make a trek down there.
It's cool.
So I was gonna ask you what your favorite project is recently, but like I don't want to have you single anything out. Obviously, Motionless and White is one of your favorite things because you live with the dudes. But like, have there been any like one-offs that you went and mixed and you were like, dude, this was so much fun, and like
Well,
I'd love to do it again.
Dillinger was really cool. That was cool because they were just like such a legacy band, you know what I mean? And it was like dang, like, you know, they got Billy Reimer playing for them, and you know, Ben Wyman is you know, a legend in his own right too, and like just so much is cool about them. So that was really awesome to do. But one thing that really stands out to me was mixing Let Live, because I had, you know, done some smaller stuff and whatever, and that was one of my biggest gigs at the time on their headliner. And the band is really talented, especially their, you know, all of them are talented, but they had another great drummer, Lonnie Robinson. I think he plays for Miguel now, but he was like amazing, and they loved to sound check. And so I would just that was my first time mixing the headliner on a tour. So I would just, and I was on a different console every day. So I'd walk into this venue, brand new console, and then have an amazing band who just wanted to sound check for an hour while I just did my thing. And so like I learned more on that tour than any tour ever, you know. And so that was a really special tour to do. And I probably would have continued doing the Dillinger thing if they hadn't already announced, like, you know, we're done in like 6 months or whatever.
Right, yeah.
That kind of seemed like maybe not a good choice at the time, but they're awesome. They were awesome. So those two stood out a lot, but most of all, yeah, the Motionless and White thing's fun just because of the freedom I have to try out different tones. Or if I could say, hey, you know how you've been using this microphone every day for this whole tour? Well, today I want to just try this one. And they're like, cool, whatever.
Yeah, that's huge, man.
Yeah, it's great.
That's really good. Because I so many times, like at the venue I worked at, you know, I'd be like, you know, hey, do you mind if I, you know, try this, or do you mind if we, like, you know, the room was like 800 people cap. It wasn't huge, you know, it had low ceilings, and gosh, my arm is so noisy. All the good broadcast arms are on back order, so I got like the cheapest one I could find on Amazon, and it's just like you can hear the springs every once in a while. It sucks. But no, you know, I'd just be like, hey, would you mind if we tried turning your cab around? You know, this is before Kempers and everything, and they would be like, no way, dude. I'm like, trust me, it'll sound better. And they're like, no way. I'm like, okay, fine. And then so I would literally just pull the fader down because it was way too much of the room. Like, there was one, I won't say the band, but it was an 80s band, and I could just keep it. It's 800 cap room, 7-foot ceiling. There's a band that came in there and tore the ceiling down. You can probably YouTube it. It was the worst night ever. But come up on stage, no room for a drum riser. Bass player loads in 3 8x10 SVT cabinets, all with heads, all linked together. Guitar player rolls in with 4 Marshall double stacks with 4 JCM 800s, all linked together. Drummer comes in, 2 kicks, like 6 or 7 toms, and just like double chinas and everything. And I had the PA off the whole night, except it was just like kick drum and vocals.
Yep.
And you could hear everything, but I was like, there's no way I was going to go tell these 80s rock legends to be like, can you not bring 3 8x10s and 6 double cabs on stage?
What are you going to do?
Yeah, man, that was a tough show to mix, but it was good. Hey, someone down here, a fan precedes you. Let's see. I worked with Logan and the Motionless and White guys for a week on the UK run, their tour back in December, and he is without a doubt one of the finest front of house tour managers I have ever worked with. Thanks, pal. That's from John Young.
I remember John, of course. John, yeah, that was actually my first time tour managing a Europe UK run, and John was just like, dude, I got it. Like, don't worry, it's already settled. He was great to work with. So hi, John. I hope you're doing good.
That's cool, man. I love how
Great.
You know, part of this quarantine, so not part of it, a lot of this quarantine thing sucks, but the best part of it is I've been able to reconnect with so many people I lost touch with because no one's doing anything. I know they're home. So that is the one good thing I hope comes out of this, is like we all come out of this with like a renewed, you know, like, you know, now we know each other. I'm meeting new people all the time, catching up with friends. So it's been good. But then on the contrary, Brendan Donahue just said, I've unfortunately worked with Logan for way too long.
Yeah, it was only like 1.5 years. Brendan was all like, I'm going to get a way better job and not spend all my time away from home anymore. See you guys later.
Yeah. I had to do the same thing.
I could not be a tour manager without Brendan because he was an ace in the hole for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, we all need those people, someone to teach us something until we fall on our face and figure it out on ourselves, right?
I just saw someone asked about my cat. I figured he would be zooming around here. His name is Spyro, like the dragon.
Oh, like the PlayStation game.
Yes, yes, yes.
Dude, if my wife is watching this, I think she was watching the earlier one. She made me buy Spyro Remastered for
Oh yeah,
PS4.
oh yeah.
And like when she has a bad day, she comes down, she like storms up here, boom, turns on the PlayStation and just like plays Spyro like for hours and just like lets it all out.
It's a classic. It's great because it's nostalgia from a game that you used to play, but now it just looks great and they remade it. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great
Mine
game.
is, I'm 34, I'll be 35 this year. So like my nostalgic game, like if I have like just a bad day, I'm just like, I don't want to talk to anybody, I turn my phone off. I come up here and I put up the Super Nintendo and I play Zelda Link to the Past. And I
Oh
start
yeah,
from scratch and I beat it all the way through. And then I'm like, okay, now I had a good day. I can go
yeah,
to bed now.
yeah.
That's so
That's a
funny.
good one. Classic.
That's funny. Um, Jeff said they guessed either Maximus or Dr. Snufflebumps. I like I like Dr. Snufflebumps.
Yeah, I like that. That could be. I mean, he could be. If he was a PhD, that would be a better name, or an MD.
You can get him ordained for
Yeah.
$20. You can ordain your cat. He can legally marry other cats. So there's that. I'll send you the link because I did it. So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
so back to mixing. What other engineers have inspired you to change the way you craft a mix? Like, who have you listened to
Ooh.
and been like, dude, I got to ask you some questions, or I love the way you mix?
So, well, just one person I mentioned earlier was Jared Daly.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first person I saw use Alan Heath, and at the time I was like, I don't know, but he definitely planted that seed in my head about it, and then of course Chris, when I saw Chris Miller was using it, and I got to hear some clips from shows that he has did, and I was just like, this might be it. So and since for me that's one of the biggest decisions I've made in the past couple years, to be like yeah, this is it. Like this is what I want to use and change the way I mix. So that was a big help. But there's a guy named Nate Northway who's mixed tons of bands, but right now he does a Day to Remember, and I mean that guy is the king. And I remember on my first tour ever, it was at the Oriental Theater in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and he was mixing a mirror at the time. And there was like some people telling me, like some other people on the tour that were front house guys, like, yo, like you're gonna want to check this dude out. And I remember he did his sound check and they played like maybe 30 seconds of the song and it was like very quiet. And I realized now that that was on purpose, but I remember thinking like, really? Like this dude's all right, whatever. And later I came in when the show started, and when the show started, I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. It was like to this day, I mean, that was back in 2014. I'm sure if I've seen him, several times since then, he would have bested this. But to this day, I've never heard a better metal mix in a club than that show right there. And it was like, cool. Like from this moment on, if my metal mix doesn't sound like that just did, then I'm not there yet. And so I was just striving to try and that, like, I don't know, it was just like every hit was like right at the threshold of like, ooh, if that was any louder, that might hurt, but it didn't. You know what I mean? And everything was just so powerful and heavy. And then I got to tour with him the next year. He was on Mayhem Fest doing Die Art is Murder, and I just got to stand there and watch him mix every single day, and just learn so much from that dude. And another guy, Ashton Parsons. I did a tour with him. The band I was working for was he does monitors for Disturbed right now, but
I say his name sounds familiar.
he's done some big stuff. He's done all kinds of people, but he was mixing Attila at the time, and it was just like man, this just sounds so good. And just watching him every day and learning stuff from him. So I've been lucky to tour with some great engineers who've just been so friendly and so accommodating, and especially those two guys. They were so nice to me in the beginning and understood that while I sucked, I was just looking to get better, and I was very hungry for it. And I think they were very cool about it. And something I heard Nate say once, and I don't know if he would remember saying this now, but we were talking about just like mixing and what's important and whatever. And for me, I was like, like kick, snare, nice drum kit. And he was like, no. It's about you're connecting the artists to their fans. That's it. That's your whole purpose. He's like, everything else does not matter as much as you think it does. The main thing is that you're making that connection. If there's a big vocal part and you can't hear the vocal, well, then you missed it. Or if there's a solo and you can't hear it, then you missed that moment. You missed that chance to make that connection. But as long as you're always aware of what is supposed to be the moment in the song you're mixing, and you can create that and convey it right, then I think that's the main goal of front of house. Because so much of is just taste. I might say that's the best sounding snare in the world, and someone else might just be like, nah, that's trash. And so much of that is so subjective. But what isn't subjective is are they establishing that connection? And
yeah, it's all
Chris
about
Miller, another guy, great engineer.
Yeah, he's okay. No, Chris is.
I'm trying to think of who else. There's some. Shelby Eisenberg is one of the dude who's just now starting to get in doing some bigger shows. He's mixing a band called Wage War, and every time I get a chance, I'll go check out Shelby's mix if we do a festival or something. And it reminds me of like the exact place I was in, where it's just like you can tell he's got it. He's got it figured out. He's got the tones, and you're just waiting to be like, not that he needs to move. Like Wage War is a great band. I love that band. I'm just excited to see that dude's trajectory as well. And then maybe one other mention. Oh, Brian Hardiswick, who does In This Moment.
Oh yeah.
I just converted him to an Alan and Heath guy. He came out on our last tour as our stage manager, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm in."
Yeah, he came to soundcheck and we hung out for a bit. And I got him set up. We have a pair of S5s at soundcheck in the B room, just kind of set up for anybody who wants to come build a show file, or they can use them for rehearsal, etc. So we set him up in there, and he was building a show file for In This Moment. And literally the day before, just all hell broke loose with the coronavirus. He's like, "Hey, do you want to come up and hang out? We're doing pre-production up here." And I was like, "Yeah, not a problem. I'll come up there." And then it was just like lockdown.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Dude, this sucks." It was like I was looking forward to like getting him up and going and helping him. But he had it, man. He was there for like hours with his laptop, and we had him going. He had like a show file built, and I put on the cans, and it sounded insane. It sounded great.
Yeah, he's solid, and he also has just overall one of the craziest work ethics ever. The dude's a psycho.
I think he left at like 2 or 3 in the morning. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
he was there all night.
Yep, that's Brian for sure. And one more guy that not so much with mixing, because we didn't spend a lot of time together on tour, but I mentioned him earlier, Eric Gerloff. He just kind of showed me some different things, and introduced me to the other side of the industry with like pop and rap and stuff like that, and just really with the advice on how to navigate the business of it, and navigate those relationships with the people who don't have much time for some crew members or whatever. It's just super business on that side, but really just great advice, life advice with moving through that, and just how to navigate it, and that was super invaluable. So those are definitely some of the dudes that I look up to in this industry for sure. And I almost got to catch Drew's mix. I was in Miami on vacation when his tour kicked off there, but that show was beyond sold out, and I wasn't just gonna hit him up. But one of these days, if we're ever allowed to do some big old arena shows again, I hope to get out there and catch his as well.
Yeah, I was gonna go watch them at Bridgestone in Nashville on March 28th or 29th, and that didn't happen. Everything was shut down. But speaking of Drew, he did have a question. He said, "Logan, for metal, do you like to run the dLive hard, driving the pre's hard, or maybe are you driving the left-right output hard?"
Kind of both. I'm with like kick, snare, drum shells. Yeah, I'm launching those things as deep into the yellow as I can get them. Just before clipping, and I mean, even I even see my snare clip. Maybe once every like 8 or 9 hits or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely
even when it clips, it doesn't sound bad.
no, I can't hear it clipping. You know what I mean? And like you look at it, and you're like, oh, that might be wrong, but yeah, I mean, the biggest secret to mixing is use your ears, man. If it sounds good, it's good. And yeah, something I say all the time. There's no rules. There's no rules. Whatever you did to make it sound good, if it sounds good, who cares if you look at the EQ and it looks and you're just like, what? Like, what are you even doing? Does it sound good? Cool. Who cares? You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I guess on a metal mix, I mean, you're driving the shells hard. You got the guitars probably in the yellow, teeter in there, vocals the same thing. But on like the main outs, do you pat it there, or do you still just kind of let it breathe and do its thing?
I like to have a lot of headroom. I definitely have never sent the. I don't think I've ever sent the mains into clipping on that console. It usually just has enough.
It's hard to do.
So yeah, it is. It is. Sometimes if the PA is set up super, and that's the other thing is it changes when you're doing club shows and you can go from maybe playing, Los Angeles and then Corpus Christi on the same show, and you load that show file in, like it might be super, super quiet on whatever, QSC rig you just walked into or whatever. So on things like that, yeah, there's been times where I'm really juicing the mains, but for the most part, no. I mean, my show's definitely loud, probably around like 105, but yeah, and to get 105, yeah, I don't feel like I'm really crushing the left-right output very hard now.
Cool. Well, thanks for that. So we're gonna try to land this plane here. It's about to hit an hour and a half, dude. These things, like, I swear, like, we get into it, and it's like we could, like, there's some people that could sit here and talk for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna have to end up doing like volume 1 and 2, and I think I just broke my mic stand. But to cap this off, what advice would you give other engineers on how to get started? Like if they're trying to get in this career, what navigational advice would you give them?
Don't lie like I did. That probably would not work out. 9 out of 10 times. They even were like, after like the second day, we're like, we've been hearing some bad things. Like, you sure about this? But I, stuck with it, worked out, whatever. So maybe don't do that. But there's 100 different ways, or maybe not 100, but there's several different ways to get into it. You could go the college route, or just trying to get hired with a company like 8th Day or Claire or something, and working up from there. But I mean, honestly, if it was me, like if I was trying to start from scratch, a Behringer X32 can handle 32 channels digital input. It's so cheap. Most people could probably buy it cash out of their savings account or checking account, whatever. And then you could take that and find some local bands in your area that are starting to open for bigger shows, and take your console out and mix them, man. Like if you got the gear and are willing to do some work, and maybe not exactly getting paid in the beginning. My first tour, I made $150 a week. You know what I mean? And slept in the bottom bunk on the floor of the van in the back with no AC. It was just, and I was stoked. I was like, this is cool with me. And just, I know it sounds so stupid to say just do it, and you can't exactly just do it, but get yourself a digital console. Whether you get one of the SQs or something, and just try and find some bands in your area who are looking to get into it. And one thing may lead to another, and maybe you mix at this venue with this band so much that they're like, hey, do you want to work here like 6 days a week? And then someone comes through that is a national act, and they're like, hey, tonight sounded great. Like, what are you doing next month? And
yeah, you want to come out? That's how a lot of it happens.
Yeah, that is probably the most, like, it seems like one of the simplest paths in. And if I had to do it over again, that's how I would do it. And I mean, you can always go to college and go that route, but most of the best engineers that I know just kind of just did it. They just befriended a band who was at that level that is just about to the point where they need a guy and can't really afford it yet. And sometimes you got to be that guy for a couple tours and get some experience, and then all the other positives will come later. But yeah, you definitely got to set your expectations low, and then just go from there, man.
Yep, that's all good advice, man. That, and just network.
Oh yeah, that's the biggest one. That's the biggest one. Just be a good dude.
Yeah, you touched on that earlier, like networking and being a good human.
Yep.
can get you really far.
Yep.
And then not lying, that's a big one too. But sometimes it doesn't hurt here and there.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for today. Logan, dude, thank you so much for hopping on doing this.
Thank you for letting me do this.
I had a blast. It was great to virtually meet you. Next time you're in Nashville, definitely let me know if you need a place to stay. I've got a couch right there you can crash on. Dinner's on me. Drinks are on me.
Heck yeah.
So next time you're here, just let me know. But if anyone has any questions, we're going to do last call for question raw.
Let me look through here and make sure I didn't miss any.
Yeah, I don't think I did. Let's see.
I see that there is, in fact, milk inside the new Titanium 1500.
Yeah. See, it just, when Jeff gets going, man, there's no stopping him, dude. There's no stopping him. But yeah, so tomorrow we do have another Q&A with Joe Exotic from Tiger King. He is an avid Q32. I'm totally kidding. He does use a Q32, I think, but I just wanted to see if Jeff was still paying attention or not. But no, we do have some cool stuff in the works here coming up soon. I'll be hosting a live stream on this channel from like 3 p.m. to midnight on Friday for a Shure SM58 day event, so tune in for that. And if you have any questions for Logan, I'm going to post his your Instagram in the description of the video. Yeah. So if they want to hit you up, they can just shoot you a DM on Instagram. And do not say it. I'll put your information there. So if you guys have questions for Logan, you didn't get a chance to ask him live, or if you're watching the replay of this, hit him up on Instagram. He's a super nice guy. He won't bite. He'll make sure to get back to you. And if you have any questions for me, just shoot us a message. And then Logan, you want to send them off with anything you're doing right now? Anything you got going on? What's new?
I am off tour for who knows how long. Would love to talk shop with anyone who wants to. I'm just existing really until it comes back around. So,
dude, what if we just had like a big engineer hang? There's like 16 people just on a call. Oops, I just killed something.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be a lot of fun. Maybe see if we can get bangs on the camera. Jeff, make that happen. I think we definitely need to get him on camera. I only see him on phone.
Alan and Heath guys to tell Bangs what we need live on the air.
Yeah, we'll do it. I'll push for it.
Great.
All right, gents. Well, Logan, don't go anywhere, but I'm going to end the stream. But thank you to everyone watching this out there. And thank you. I said it before, but thank you to everyone who makes live entertainment possible. You'll be back to work in no time. We're going to continue to solo in place, as KMAD says. But thank you so much for tuning in. I hope everybody stays well, and we'll be around soon.